All right, welcome, Sox fans. It's another episode of Ladies Night. I'm with my co-host, Hannah Flippo, today. We don't have any special guests. It's just us talking some baseball during the day, because we like to do Ladies Night during the day, Hannah and I do. So we are just going to kind of chat about some general, like, systemic stuff going on with the Sox. And that's why we're here after all. So we're going to start out today chit-chatting a little bit about our newest White Sox brethren, which is Edgar, Quero, and Chase Meidroth. And just kind of a check-in and see how things are looking since they've arrived here in Chicago. It was interesting when I was just kind of like looking through the stats and looking through the Quero stuff. I was like, gosh, I have to like remind myself that he's 22 and like just 22. Like he turned 22 like a month ago. And like, that is, I mean, that by MLB standards, that's just super young. And so I was like, who else is really young in baseball, and found, so he's the fifth youngest. He's behind the three Jacksons, Jackson Merrill, Jackson Churio, and the other Jackson guy, which is, his name is escaping my head right now.
Joe.
Yes. And so he's the fifth youngest in all of baseball, which, I mean, that's pretty impressive. There's a lot of professional baseball players out there, and for him to be just turning 22 is pretty exciting. So, he is a switch hitter, and he is definitely, which, a lot of players are, he's better versus left-handers, like significantly better. He's also significantly better when he's catching. So the few games that he has been, a DH, he hasn't been that great. He definitely performs better when he's doing what he does best, which is catching. He's been great with runners in scoring position. He's batting .316, which on this team, that's like, woo, that's like completely amazing. And in the field, he's done really well too. He's only had one error, and his caught stealing percentage is 44.4%, which is second in all of the American League, which is awesome too. So that's kind of one of the things I feel like when people talk about Quero, he's a hitting catcher, he's an offensive guy, and kind of knock his defensive side, but digging through the defense so far, that looks pretty good too. So what are kind of some of your thoughts, Hannah, on what you've seen from Quero so far?
Yeah, I mean, he has a .291 average with 7 walks and 8 RBIs in 18 games. Like, that's better than half the team in half as many games, which I mean is a testament to the team, but also him. You're seeing how he's carried himself on the team, seeing how just seeing him overall, it gives a new light to the Sox, and it gives a different angle to this team than before. It just felt meh. It felt like a stale lineup watching. Seeing him come in and be consistent has been a real improvement despite the outcome of the games.
Yeah, and when you think about like the maturity that it takes to be a catcher too, so coming to the major leagues and having to worry about the offensive side of things, but then the maturity that is required of you to be a catcher and game plan and all of those things, like the fact that he's doing so well so early is just, I mean, it's really incredible if you think about it. I just, as Sox fans, we should be really appreciating this moment, because there aren't a whole lot of moments to be appreciating, but to see what he's done so far. And, of course, he's hitting really well, and some of that's going to fall off a little bit eventually, but it's super impressive, and to really appreciate being in this moment to watch a guy like this. And he could have a 10-year career, and he's only 32 years old. I mean, that's amazing. So
yeah, I honestly I can see Corey Lee's job being in jeopardy when he comes back, just because he does have that maturity, and same with Meidroth. Like, having two young, really mature guys on the team is I hope they don't waste it away because it would be a shame.
Yeah, because unfortunately we've been known to do that, haven't we? A time or two. So yeah, well, I'm gonna, at this point, he could easily, along with Shane Smith, obviously be in the talks for who's going to represent us at the All-Star game. So I hope he keeps on keeping on because it's been really fun so far. So yeah, so let's kind of flip over to Chase. He, has had a little bit of the injury. Just coming back from that, and he hasn't done as well as he did prior to getting hurt, but I mean that's expected, kind of shaking off the rust and kind of getting back into it. We haven't seen much power from him yet. His scouting grade on power is pretty average, so but we haven't even seen that yet. So I think that's fun to think about. Like we'll still see some average power from him, and he's yet to get his first major league home run. So that'll be super exciting when that happens. He is, I was just kind of looking at, when he is hitting the ball, what is he hitting? And he is really, really good when it comes to the breaking stuff and the off speed, which I thought was interesting. Struggles a little bit more with some fastball stuff. So it's, yeah, I mean, that'll come around too. I feel like, as the bonus player in the Crochet deal, I feel like anything he gives us is just going to be like, yay, because we got Brady Montgomery in that deal. And so I think if we get, if Chase turns out to be a really solid major league player, I think that's going to be just a big bonus for us.
Yeah, I think him being behind on the fastballs is just it just highlights his patience ultimately. I mean, 217 batting average is, I mean, I'm not that surprised by it, just seeing that he is much more of a patient hitter. He does also only chase at 18% of pitches, which is pretty good. And when he chases, he makes contact about 70% of the time. So that's a good sign. Just have to get him to hit more in the zone. So
yes,
that's a lot easier to teach than to lay off pitches.
Right, exactly. I mean, yeah, what is his on base percentage is like hovering right around like 360 right now. And so, yes, we need more of that. Bring it on, bring it on, bring it on. We will take it. That is for sure. And one other thing was defensively, he's actually been better at short than second. So I was like, oh, interesting. And he's actually played more games for us at short than second. So
that's interesting because the scouting report says second.
Right, exactly. That, yeah, he's supposedly, but I mean, of course, it's a small sample size still. He hasn't played that many games yet, so it could easily flip. But at the moment, he's actually better at short. So kind of speaking of Chase, what happened, the other night, it was kind of unfortunate with getting bonked on the head with the baseball. So kind of like, what are your thoughts on how a young player like that can move on from that situation, because he's been like the meme now of the 2025 White Sox, which like breaks my heart. Like I wish it could be somebody else that, is not going to be here long term, somebody like Jacob Amaya or whatever, bunk him on the head and make him kind of the poster boy for the 2025 White Sox. But what is your take on kind of how Chase should, learn from that situation, move on, and kind of hopefully put it behind him?
I mean, today was a good start. They got blanked 10-0, but he got a hit. So I think that's probably the hardest part, is just to get back out there and to try and still do your job at the end of the day. I mean, I have not had that experience, thankfully. But I imagine the first game, just trying to stand at the plate and hold your head up high and remember like you're there for a reason. It's probably the hardest part, and getting that hit probably helped his confidence a bit. So I think that's a good start, but just, I mean, that's what you got to do every day.
Yep, you gotta. I hope anyway. And it sounded like Venable was behind him and saying, he's a gamer, and that he really just realizes that that kind of thing happens to the best players. I mean, it's just one of those fluke things. It's baseball. Baseball is full of fluke things. So, you're only human. That stuff's going to happen. Unfortunately, it happened in a situation that was just kind of, the perfect explosion of all these things. But, him being the kind of gamer and things that we've heard about, hopefully it will be a moment that he can and hopefully he's just not on social media. My husband came home the other day and he was just like, oh my gosh, you didn't tell me about what happened to Chase Meidroth. And I was like, yeah, I was just trying not to be the person sharing the memes and everything, because he is such a young guy and your heart goes out for him in those types of situations. So
Absolutely.
yeah. So it's so good. So good, positive things we're seeing from both of those guys. So that's exciting. All right. So let's move on to one of our old guys, even though he's still not old, but Luis Robert Jr. What are your takes from him over the past couple of weeks? Is he making himself more tradable? If so, where might he be a good fit? Should we hold on to him? What are you thinking when it comes to Luis?
I mean, it seems like he remembered that to be traded, he has to hit. So he's been doing better the last 7, 8 some games, but he's still batting under the Mendoza line. I think it's really interesting. I don't know if it's his decision or if Venable is telling him to do this, but the number of stolen bases he has is just odd. He was never inherently like a stolen base guy. So it's just funny to see that he already has 15 stolen bases over 36 games or 35 games at least. And compared to last year, that's only 8 fewer than he had all of 2024. And he was hurt during that. So it's just really interesting to see that they're running him. Maybe they're trying to use his base running as a positive, other
Right.
than to make up for his lack of hitting. But it's just, I don't see how. I see they could trade him. They're not going to get a good return.
Right. Yeah. Not if things obviously, don't pick up on the offensive side of things for him. I mean, I drilled it down a little bit. So for the last 2 weeks, he is doing quite a bit better. 267, 365, 489 with an 854 OPS. So, I mean, that's good. I mean, that's, still not MVP all-star numbers, but it's significantly better than how he started the year. So it could be, he is a cold weather, slow starter kind of guy. One of our all-time favorite, Jose Abreu, is that kind of guy too. It's like April Abreu just wanted to kind of forget that he even existed. So, if he can build upon that slash line that he's had over the last couple of weeks, and then, combine that with the stolen bases, he definitely looks more viable that he, could be a candidate to trade. But it's also one of those things is like, do you trade so low on a guy? Because I mean, he would really have to be really a lot better over the next 2 months to get anything decent back. I think I was looking at like when the Dodgers were talking and it was like, oh, James Outman was like one of the names floated. I'm like, that guy's terrible. Like what, why would we do that? Like that doesn't even make any sense. And yeah, I'm sure there would be a prospect obviously thrown in there, but how good of a prospect? And it's just like almost more like just take your chances with having this guy on the team and building around him and keep bringing these other guys up and leave him be, as opposed to just getting scraps for him. Kind of seems silly if you ask me, but
I would agree. I don't, at this rate, I don't think they should trade him. I mean, they're spending nothing on everybody other than Benintendi. They're spending nothing on their payroll. So another 20 million it's not going to hurt them for
yeah,
the little they're spending. And he might be able to provide some advice to the young guys coming up that, you wouldn't get from prospects that you trade for. And at this rate, also, you trade for more prospects. How much longer are they going to sit in AAA?
Right. Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I don't know. At this point, I feel like, and he's got such a team friendly deal too, still remaining. So it's like, it's not going to be that expensive. Hold on to him and kind of see what happens. But I don't know, maybe Getz can work his magic. I don't know. I don't see it, but whatever. All right. Well, we're about halfway through already. That went like super quick. So we're going to take a very brief break here, and we'll be back with you in just a second. All right. Well, welcome. We're back. So we're going to kind of transition to looking a little bit at the AL Central and talking about that because it's always been talked about, oh, the AL Central is such a winnable division. And, obviously when you only have 10 wins this far into the season, it's not winnable for us whatsoever. But are you surprised at all that, pretty much all four teams above the White Sox are good? I mean, the Twins are the only team below 500. So what are your takes and thoughts on what you're seeing so far from our pals in the Central?
I'm not surprised by Detroit at all. I have them as overwhelming favorites for the division. Cleveland, I'm not too surprised about. For the record, I'm just a little surprised that the pitching is not where it should be. Really, they're riding on their lineup's coattails because I don't see anything that impressive with the pitching or the relievers, especially. I mean, Stephen Kwan is having a great season as he did last year. He's just been sneaky good.
Right.
Jose Ramirez also being a leader in the clubhouse, but Emmanuel Clase is a surprise that I did not see coming. He was elite last year, and this year it's just shocking to see that turn. And then Kansas City, I wrote an article on this actually. I think their success is a little bit misleading because they've only played bad teams really, and all the teams that they've played that are good, they've either been swept or lost a series against, like the Brewers and the Yankees and Cleveland and Detroit. They lost to those teams, so I don't think their success is long lasting.
So yeah, they've won 14 of their last 16 or something like that, but as you pointed out, not against the best of the opponents. So when they get to some of the tougher folks out there, it'll be interesting to see what happens to them. I knew the Tigers were going to be improved for sure, but is this the Jason Benetti effect or what? It's crazy. I mean, they're second. Only what was it? They're second in baseball to the Dodgers. I was like, huh? How is that possible? How are they second? In terms of their overall record was kind of crazy, but good for them. Good for Jason. He gets to call some good baseball games after surviving over here for however many years he had to put up with it. So the one thing when I was looking at the Kansas City and the White Sox the other day when I was getting ready to write the game thread, I noticed that I was looking at run differential, and it shocked me that the White Sox run differential, even though it's not good, it's -29. This was yesterday. So for after today, now it's worse, -39 or whatever, but they still are not in the bottom. They were sitting at 23. So I guess if we're looking at things to maybe be a little bit positive about, sitting at 23 out of 30 is still not great. But last year, they were at the bottom, and they were by far at the bottom. They blew everybody else out of the water when it came to run differential. And so I kind of started digging around a little bit and filtering out the pitching stats and stuff, where our starters are sitting, because we knew that pitching was going to be pretty decent, and that the problem with this team is really the offense, and that is exactly what all the numbers say. Our overall ERA for all the pitchers sits at 416, which is 19th out of 30 teams, which, you know, not great, but again, not the worst either. And then when you filter out the starters are actually 11th with a 3.76. I mean, that to be 11 out of, you know, 30, that's a significant improvement, I think. And you know, just also shows you how awful the bullpen is, which, you know, doesn't surprise anybody. And very interesting. So relievers were at 4.44, sitting at 21st. The Cubs are at 23. So the Cubs relievers are actually worse than our relievers, but they have the offense to overcome it, right? And we don't. Right. And so I'm really hoping that there is some plan in place because I mean, what is the plan for the bullpen? Like, clearly the plan for the starters, we're seeing all of that, but there's got to be some plan for this bullpen because they're terrible. And they're really at this point, they're tanking. They're tanking for us. They are absolutely blowing games for us. And in those, which we've seen in the close leads, I mean, we've had so many close games that we've lost. So thoughts on maybe some of those things being positives to look forward to be
the pitching is a positive for sure, especially seeing all of them be other than Martin Perez, everyone being very young. That's a good sign to see, especially since they'll be on the team for another few years. Hopefully we'll see. Bullpen, I don't see any. I mean, bullpen is usually the last thing to come together for an established team. Just seeing how immature this team is, I don't see any help from AAA.
Right.
Maybe if they made Nick Nastrini a long reliever, that might be a stopgap, or that might help a little bit in the interim for the transition to the bullpen to just lighten their load. And also, as it's come up that this bullpen is going to be gassed by July at this rate. So to avoid that, probably need to call up a couple people from AAA like Nastrini or like Iriarte to put in a couple innings as a buffer between the starters and the actual bullpen now. That's probably the only thing. That's the only thing I can see, because that's realistic, because they're not going to sign a free agent, and they're not going to, if they trade anything, I don't know if it's going to be for anyone in the bullpen.
Because do you feel like any of the pieces that are out there now, you're like, oh yeah, like this piece it's going to be part of the plan, is going to be a part of the future. Like when I'm going over the names and I'm thinking, I'm like, because at least I guess I would feel a little bit better if it was like, okay, we've got a couple of guys that we can kind of build the pen around. Do you think there's a couple guys there?
No, there's like Jared Schuster, but like he's not doing well. It's people like that that I don't see much. I don't see any foundation of a bullpen. And the Penn Murphy, when the second he did well, they sent him down. So I don't think they even know what to do with this bullpen.
Yeah, it's just, I know, like you said, you know, I mean, it is kind of the last piece of the puzzle usually, but I would like to see someone step it up, that you can be like, okay, well, we can kind of build around these one or two pieces and, you know, start looking at what we've got in the minors, or when we're going to trade, you know, trade for some guys that we might be able to do that with, because right now it's our Achilles heel for sure. I mean, the starters, in terms of earned runs, have the 5th best out of the 30 teams in terms of the number of earned runs that they're giving away. So, I mean, that also tells you we've a problem with our defense still, but they're topped only by the Dodgers, the Padres, the Rangers, and the Mets. I mean, that's a pretty good group of people to be in, you know, lumped in with. So you just have to do something. You have to do something with the pen, and we have to obviously do something with the offense at some point, because, you know, we do have these young guys coming up, but they're not going to be able to provide everything that we need. So Yeah, I guess at the end of the day, there are a few things to be happy about, but there are also still some major gaping holes that really need to be addressed. And I don't see a whole lot of things happening for some of that. So that's a bit
Me
frustrating.
neither.
That's a bit frustrating. All right. Well, with our few minutes that we have left, let's talk about the City Connect jerseys because, they made their debut last weekend, and they've been very polarizing, I feel like, way back when they were leaked earlier in the season of what they were going to look like. And so I was just kind of like looking through social media and what people are saying and, listening kind of to the voices of White Sox fans, and non-White Sox fans. And it's really interesting because White Sox fans, for the most part, are like, I saw somebody put terrible, which I thought was really funny. That is terrible.
That's a good one.
Overall, that Sox fans kind of are really disgusted with the whole idea of being a White Sox Bulls thing, and basically because it's Jerry owns both teams. But then those who are further out of the White Sox, peripheral or whatever, seem to like it and think that, from a fashion standpoint, the colors look good together, and, being associated with Michael and the Bulls and all of that kind of stuff. So it's very much, I feel like, split in terms of how people feel about it. It's like they either completely hate it, and it's really, would we hate it as much if it wasn't associated with Jerry? And people saying, oh, it's actually a really cool look. What have you heard, or what are your thoughts? Or
Red and black is always classic, and I mean, I think it's just a matter of timeliness. Like, if the Bulls were not the Bulls right now, if the Sox were not the Sox, this probably would have been a great 90s jersey to 90s City Connect, like, if they released it back then.
right.
This is not the time to. I don't want to think about the Bulls right now. I don't want to think about the Sox. I don't want to think about both of them disappointing me. So, I mean, ultimately, and I saw something where it's like these are the first jerseys to like blend two teams, and I mean, I think there's a reason for that. It's not easy to do, and you have to think about how fans view both of their teams, and I think that context was missing when whoever created the design.
Yeah, the timeliness of it was a little head scratching. But then when you realize, our owner is 89, right? 89. So he probably is like, well, we got to do this before I croak or whatever. I will say I was one of the people like rolling my eyes, like, ugh, really, Bulls, ugh. But seeing them on Friday in the night game, I thought on the field they looked pretty great. Now I know, again, there were still plenty of haters like, it looks even worse on the field. I was a hater, and I have to admit that I did think they looked pretty good. So I don't know. When you saw them on the field and the players wearing them, did you feel any
They
different?
kind of popped off the grass. They did, and I mean, they had some magical effect because they won 2 of the 3 in the series with them. So maybe it's what they need to win. Who knows? But they weren't as bad. But I would not buy one. I would not like. This is not a jersey I need to have in my closet.
Yeah. I'm not a hat person, but I really do like the hats. I like the fact that they put the flying sock onto it. And like you said, the color scheme, I think red and black does always look really sharp together. And I don't know, I'm torn on it. I don't know. I have pretty much every jersey. I'm not sure if I will get it or not. But I don't know. I could be worse. And I think we're very like soiled about it because we had an awesome one to start with, but
That's
just
fair.
with where we're at, and like you said, had it been a different time and place, we probably would have like, this is the best thing ever.
Yeah, maybe if this came out before the original City Connects came out, maybe people would have different responses. But the bar was set high for the first City Connects, And this is just, I mean, it's tough for anybody in that job. So I'm not, hats off to the people who have to make those decisions, because it's not easy to please people.
It definitely isn't. It's not easy to please people when people are generally, for the most part, really pissed off, because that pretty much defines our fan base right now, right?
Yes.
We're ticked off about everything. I was in DC for about 5 days, and I did see a hat, one of the new hats. I was like, whoa, look at that. That was kind of cool. So I don't know. We'll see what happens for the most part. But I thought they looked good on for a night game. And the day game, I wasn't as excited about it. I was like, but for the night game, I thought it was kind of cool. So all right, look at us. We were almost perfect at 30 minutes, at the 30-minute mark. So, we didn't have a guest this week, but we do have a guest next week. We will be talking to Courtney Finicum of Baseball Isn't Boring. So that will be a super fun chat. So you'll want to be sure to tune in then. Thanks for hanging with us, everybody. And Ladies Night will be back next week.